Welcome to the Music Nut Program. I'm John. Thank you so much for joining me today. And welcome back to the latest edition of the Album War. The premise of this series is to discuss two or more artists or bands that released an album with the same title. Regardless of era, regardless of genre, I will discuss these albums, what I like about them, what I'm not so crazy about, and then I will determine the winner of the album war. Today's title, Reach for the Sky. Today we'll have two great American bands battling it out. Let's meet the principals. One thing I will go into is both of these albums, title Reach for the Sky, are not highly regarded in the band's catalogs. First Principle is one of the finest American rock bands or American bands in recorded music, in my humble opinion, particularly as a live unit. This would be the band's seventh album and their first album that was on Arista Records, released in August 1980. I am talking about the Allman Brothers Band. This is a collection of their seventh and eighth albums, respectively. Here's the seventh album, Reach for the Sky. This would be the second of three albums from their first comeback before they would break up, and they would get back together in 1989, release a few more albums, and then become more of a touring unit from that point. And they were an active band until 2014. This album hit number 27 on the Billboard Top 200 charts. It did not certify. The other band I'm going to talk about had more success with their album. This was this band's fourth release. This is one of the finer melodic hard rock bands of the 1980s and early 1990s. You can call them hair metal, whatever you want to call them. Their first few albums were pretty darn impressive. This would be their fourth album, released on October 24, 1988 on Atlantic Records, Ratt with Reach for the Sky. Hit number 17, gave the band their last platinum record to date. This would be their fourth consecutive platinum record. So let's get into the albums. By the time the Allman Brothers released their version of Reach for the Sky in 1980, their star had fallen from a critical standpoint and a commercial one too. A lot of people call this album and the one after it Allman Brothers Light because you don't have that adventurous nature that you had on those early albums. They're more safe, you can say, but still good songs. Maybe they don't hit the heights of their early albums or their early hit singles. You don't have a Ramblin' Man or a Whipping Post or a Dreams on here, but there's still a lot of good songs. Interestingly, I've seen the Allman Brothers Band 7 times. I didn't see them until 2003. I never saw them play a song from this album. I'm gathering once they got back together in 89 on their 20th anniversary tour, they weren't playing songs from this album, Reach for the Sky, or Brothers of the Road anymore. So let's get into who played on the album. By this point, we have four of the original members. We of course, because Duane Allman and Barry Oakley both passed away in the early 70s. And the members who replaced them, Lamar Williams was already out by this point. Chuck Leavell was already out. They would form a band called Sea Level. So we got Greg Allman on vocals and keyboards, Dickie Betts on guitar and vocals, Dan Toller on guitar, David Goldflies on bass, Butch Trucks on drums and percussion, and J. Johnny Johansson on drums and percussion as well. At this time, as I record this, the only living original member of the Allman Brothers Band is J. Johnny Johansson, later to be known as JMO. Dan Toller is no longer with us as well. This was produced by Mike Lawler and Johnny Cobb. Another musician who was very prominent on this album was Jim Essery. He plays harmonica on here. He's no longer with us as well. He's not credited here on the original liner notes, but if you go on allmusic.com, it will tell you that he played on this album. He plays harmonica on 4 tracks. Now, as we go into the songs, the songs are, like I said, they're more in a blues rock vein, but they're played with a lot more fire than what you heard on the previous album, Enlightened Rogues, and certainly more so than their last album before they would break up for a few years, and that was Win, Lose, or Draw. Hell and High Water is the opener. This has a very bouncy feel to it. This is written by Dickie Betts and it's sung as a duet by Greg Allman and Dickie Betts. This is a nice opener, maybe not one of their best openers, but I think it brings this album to a good start. Mystery Woman, this is Greg Allman's lead on here. This is this song this is if you were to say what did they sound like from 1979 to 82, they had a lot of songs in this vein, like a mid-paced kind of a blues rock song, with a good verse, a strong chorus, but they're not doing anything out of the ordinary. They're not wowing you with crazy solos or going to different time signatures. It's just a good, 4 minute song. And this is decent. From the Madness of the West, this would be the Dickie Betts instrumental, which was becoming common for the Allman Brothers Band's albums at this point. And all of his instrumentals are wonderful, and this is no exception. How does this sound? Now, you don't really hear this re talked about as among their best instrumentals, like In Memory of Elizabeth Reed or Jessica or Hotlanta or anything like that. But when I listen to this sounds like Les Brer's an A minor from Eat a Peach and Pegasus from Enlightened Rogues had a kid. And they came up with this because it reminds you a little bit of Les Brer's, but it's very heavy on the percussion like Pegasus is. 6 minutes and 37 seconds. It's one of the shorter instrumentals that were written by Dickie Betts. This is very, very good. I Got a Right to Be Wrong. This is very spirited, more blues rock again. We have a very strong performance from the band. Dickie handles the lead on here, and this is very good. Angeline is the single. This hit number 58 on the Hot 100. This has the keyboards on it. One thing I should mention about this album with the keyboards, we don't have the organ and piano like we did on the previous albums. I mean, not much anyway. Now we're getting more synthesizers, which were really common in the early 1980s, which dates the album a little bit, but this is a cool single. Greg sounds great on it. It's very, very well done. Famous Last Words is the shortest track on here. Again, it's very spirited. The song is decent. It's probably my least favorite, but it just comes and goes. It's okay. I wouldn't say it's mediocre or filler or anything like that. Keep on keeping on. Again, we're picking up the pace. We're more in that blues rock vein. We got some nice guitar work here from both Dickie and Dan. The unison guitar lines aren't on here too much on this album. You hear it the most on From the Madness of the West. But Keep on Keeping On is very strong. And So Long, we slow down the pace as we end the album. This is the piano ballad that ends the album. Greg has a very strong vocal on here. We got some really classy guitar playing here at the end. from Dickie and Dan. I think this album ends very strong. Not one of the classic Allman Brothers Band albums, but there's still lots to like here on Reach for the Sky. I do know that Greg was not high on this album. I owned his book, It's Not My Cross to Bear, and he talked about these two albums and he said, you won't find a copy of these in the Allman's household. But there's a lot to like on here. Maybe not a lot to love. It's still good. Now let's get into Ratt's Reach for the Sky. We still have the original lineup on here that recorded from the self-titled EP in 1983. We still have Stephen Pearcy on lead vocals, Robin Crosby on backing vocals and guitars, Warren D. Martini on backing vocals and guitars, Juan Crochet on backing vocals and bass guitar, Bobby Blotzer on drums, percussion, harmonica, and washboard. We do have the New West horns on one track, and they are arranged by Chris Body and Ken Smith. This was produced by Beau Hill. It does have some of the studio trickery that you hear on a lot of the 80s hard rock and heavy metal albums, but it's got a pretty loud production as well. Not loud in loudness wars, but you won't have to really turn up your stereo on this like you would on the Allman Brothers one, the Allman Brothers Band album. So let's get into the tracks. Now, when I bought this album on cassette as a new release in 88, I didn't think this was up to snuff compared to the first three, and I still feel the same way. But City to City is a kick-ass opener. This rocks. It's very driving. The band do a great job on this. Great vocal on here, great chorus. I Want a Woman was the second single. This did not chart on the Billboard Top 100. The chorus is kind of corny, but it is a catchy song. It's decent. Way Cool Jr. was the first single. This would get played a lot on AOR. It would hit number 75 on the Billboard Hot 100. I believe it's the last single they had to hit the Hot 100. How does this sound? 70s Aerosmith. This is where the horn section comes in, and it brings a lot to it. It's got this swing and this groove to it. It is awesome. I thought this should have been the last big hit that Ratt would have, but it stalled. But best song on the album, easy, in my opinion. And from this point, I don't think the album's that hot. Don't Bite the Hand That Feeds is good. It sounds like something we've heard before. It's got a decent bridge on it. It's okay. I Want to Love You Tonight is the band's attempt at a power ballad. One thing about Ratt, when they rocked, they were great. When they did power ballads, I thought they came up short. I thought the best one was Giving Yourself Away, and I wasn't even that high on this one. Stephen Pearcy is a great rock singer. I don't think he has the voice to do a ballad like Janie Lane did, or like Sebastian Bach did, or Vince Neil did back in the day. I think this comes up short. I don't even a call and response with the vocals and the chorus doesn't sound right. This is a bridge too. Love My Bridges. The bridge on here doesn't really add much to it. We get to the second side of the album. I don't think there's anything on here that really knocks you out, even though Warren D. Martini's solos are great. The band do a great job. They sound professional. I just don't think the songs are there. Chain Reaction is very driving. The lyric rather on the chorus is beyond corny. And they always had, their lyrics were never challenging, but the thing was, on the first three albums, the songs were so great that, you didn't really think about the lyrics. Here it really jumps out at you. No Surprise is a little more melodic. This is okay. This has a great solo in here, very melodic solo from Warren D. Martini. Bottom line, hmm, never got into the bottom line as a track. When I bought this in 88 or now. What's it going to be? We're getting a little more melodic on here. A decent chorus. Mm, it's not a lot to write home about outside of that. What I'm after is an okay closer. I don't think it's as good as the first three songs. The first three songs on here are pretty cool. Particularly Say You Say and Wake Hold Junior. What I'm after is a decent closer. When you hear this, it's a lot of the songs on here, they're done professionally, played very well. You don't hear the same passion, I don't think. And I think after having three strong albums in a row, I think the songwriting juices were running out on here and running out fast. You heard it a little bit on the end of Dancing Undercover. The first seven tracks were killer, and the next three weren't as good. Here we got two very strong tracks, one pretty good one in I Want a Woman, and then you really hear the bottom fall out from here. I mean, it sounds good playing, but when you compare it to what came before, I think it comes up short. But this would be a platinum album for Ratt. Was That's how great their momentum was at this point. The momentum from those first three albums, Out of the Cellar, Invasion of Your Privacy, and Dancing Undercover, respectively. They always did pretty good business on tour as well. Yeah, this one didn't really hit the way the first three did, but there is some good tracks on here. So, who wins the album war? Now, I'm a bigger fan of the Allman Brothers Band. I'll tell you that straight out. But I got into Ratt first because I was a hard rock, heavy metal kid in 1984, and still very much so in 88, although my musical tastes were starting to expand. I got into the Allman Brothers Band in 89 when a coworker of mine from Jim Dandy's restaurants, welcome to Jim Dandy's, have a Jim Dandy time, introduced me to Eat a Peach. And then I bought the Dreams box set. And then from there, I became a huge fan. So, but I mean, I've had a lot of great experiences with this band's music. Saw Ratt once live on a Dancing Undercover tour. Saw the Allman Brothers 7 times. The Allman Brothers wins this one. This 6.5, but I give a lot of their albums 8s and 9s and 10s. This I'd only give a 5. And it's because of those three opening tracks. Out of the Cellar's a 10. And I think Invasion of Your Privacy, Dancing Undercover, 8s, 8.5, 8.5s. Detonator, the album after this, I would say is a better album. I'd give that a 7. Now, as far as the Almonds, it's not my least favorite album. I like this more than Brothers of the Road. This or Enlightened Rogues, kind of a toss-up. Not a fan of Win, Lose, or Draw outside of High Falls. And Can't Lose What You Ever Had is a decent opener. But they win the album more today. So, what do you think of these albums? Do you own these albums? Did you own these albums from the get-go, or did you buy them later? And what were your opinions on them then and now? What do you think of these bands? Do you still listen to the Allman Brothers Band? Do you still listen to Rats? Please let me know in the comments. I will be having more album war shows coming up in the very near future. I will be doing my top 10 favorite albums from 2005 in the next few days, and I hope you join me then. So, thank you so much for joining me today. Till I see you again, do what you love, and I'll talk to you soon.